This is part two of winning the battle for consistency. And what we talked about earlier today was a concept about analyzing your life cycle and looking into life cycle, how you are, who you are, came validating your current direction and the space that you're in. And we talked a lot about, or I talked a lot about where those the different stages are, and then a last little bit that said the system that you create, the results will be the results are exactly what the system is created for. And so however you create or what you look at doing, you will ultimately do is the thought process, and how that analyzing your life cycle plays into moving into this space number two, which is called realizing strategy. And so to start looking at strategy, this concept number two, defining the needs within your organization. There's a couple different ways to think about this. Again, to keep it kind of structured and simple. How to do this, and the way I'd kind of propose that this kind of happens is how this next little bit here is going to go. So with that, really to start out, to define what we're talking about here. What does it mean to realize strategy? What does it mean to realize strategy? So how is strategy, or what kind of strategy are we talking about? Strategy is a huge word. It is so big. Strategy is as big of a plan of action or policy as it can be, and it's designed to achieve a major overall aim. That is, the sky is the limit. We can make anything become strategy. And if you want to get a little even more granular, and if you look at what I believe it is, it's the ability to outline a plan, set objectives, and then use them to guide improving your company's financial stability in the market. So the strategy is going to be, how am I going to set up my objectives within my organization to improve my financial stability in the market? And if we can use that as a baseline, always improving our financial stability in our market that we're in, or the market that we want to get into, I believe that that is a good way to start thinking about strategy, and a good way to start aligning how you start grabbing a hold of it and moving it into this space of what. If you look at the graphic on the right, I really like it. Where are we trying to get across? What are we trying to move into? How are we going to move into this space, and what does it look like in order to get there? And the reason we're doing it is to be more financially stable and improve where we're at in the market. So simplified, this is a high-level plan that helps a business achieve its long-term goals. What are the goals? Is it building revenue? Is it adding people? Is it adding a department? Is it moving into where and how a new market is evolving, and what that looks like? Strategy is all of that and more. And there's some ways here that I'm going to walk through in a little bit. There's some ways here to start refining that into understanding kind of how to do that, and what some ideas are early on that you can use to start looking at strategy. Lots of different ways to do it, but here's just a couple of ideas. And so I'm just going to throw this up here. So in one way to think about it here, is what kind of strategy are you really going for? And so the first set of strategy, the first part of a strategy is a strategic plan, and then there's also an annual plan. So there's a difference between the two of them. The strategic plan that a company would use is a global vision for the next few years. So it would say, in 2 years we're going to do this, or in 4 years we're going to do this, or in 5 years we want to be here. This is a strategic plan that is renewed and updated annually, probably in a large leadership session, and involves key leadership involvement. An annual strategic plan takes that big picture strategic plan and it puts it into the nuts and bolts to what's going to be done over the next year. And so that piece is very specific and very uniquely tailored to the year and to what's going to happen throughout the annual year. And I see this becoming a challenge for people, because again, there's this what are we going for mentality that has to happen. And I feel like there's a big decision-making process for the leadership team as to how the team wants to realize strategy. Are you in a mode that needs or requires a strategic plan for a long period of time? And do you want to set up a strategic plan? We'll talk about that. Or are you know where you want to go, and really we're just hardcore people and we want to get into just an annual plan. We want to put a plan together, move the peg from here to here over the next year, and then the next year move the plan from here to here over the next year, and move the plan from here to here, because we know where we're at. So awareness and realizing where you are and what you want to do, I feel like is a real important to thinking through strategy and then putting the plan, and making it activate this strategy and figure out where you want to go. And so another thought process here in order to do that is to separate out strategy, or how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time sort of a mentality here. And this is a tool I think is really helpful to think about how that works. So if there's this big, huge strategic plan that can happen in an annual plan that is this long side, this strategic implementation level is a good way in my mind to look at strategy and understand where you want to focus your efforts. And so, because there's so many things you can focus on, again, trying to get these alignment areas, there's these three simple levels of strategy that I believe are good ways to kind of wrap your arms around what strategy looks like. And so the first level is this corporate level. This is the level that says we are going to put a mission and a vision statement in place. We're going to take this long-term performance look. It's probably some kind of a third party, maybe person that comes in and does a strategy 2-day, 3-day. I know people that do this 2 or 3-day, corporate level strategy, mission statements and things like this, put it together. And it's a long-term corporate view of where the team wants to go. These are done routinely by companies all over Denver, all over Colorado, all over the country, very routinely. In fact, I feel like some of the industries and the people that I talk to, our construction industry is way behind a lot of the other industries that are out there. When I started getting into this space where I'm in now, I realized really quickly that what we were in the space that we're in the construction industry is far behind where other businesses are at with implementing strategy. Lots of other businesses and other industries around construction, outside of construction, do this type of thing routinely every year, and they update it and they do these different things with their corporate businesses. And so we as an industry, I feel like, are getting better at it, and we're looking at some of these things, but we have my opinion, and I'm sure there are people who disagree with this, but my opinion is that we can get much better getting these types of awareness levels up around our businesses. Because as we know, if we make clarity, people are going to come to want to work for us. They're going to know where we're at. They're going to know where we're going, and they're going to want to get on with us and go do what we do. And so that corporate level strategy, real important to think through and understand where you're at. It's your mission, it's your values, it's your impacts, long-term performance. It's what you do overall as a company. The next level is this mid-level strategy, business level. And this thought on strategy says, now that I know at my corporate level, or I know where I'm going to go, now I'm going to take it down to a business level and say, I'm going to talk just about my market that I'm in, either my geographical, my vertical market, and I'm going to take it to this next level and say, I'm going to go after this, I'm going to go after that as a business, and here's how we're going to look at a new industry. I'm going to go work on hospitality, or I'm going to go work on potentially healthcare, or I'm going to go take on these different specific business levels in my company. How do I have to do strategy in order to look at my businesses and look at my markets and my specific business areas? And maybe it might be I'm going to look at BDC or technology or HR or some of these other business areas that are support structures. But at that level, I'm looking at this at a specific business that's going to help me grow and take on the other areas. And I'm going to build a strategy just around that business level, or what I believe that business level wants to be. And then the last level is the functional level. And so the functional level is designed for where the rubber meets the road in departments: marketing, pre-construction, safety, quality control. Anything that happens at the functional level within the business that I have, I'm going to go and make a strategy specifically around and to support my business and corporate strategies. So I'm going to talk about some of how those functional levels potentially work and what they look like and how it happens. Now, a lot of times we really like the functional level of strategy. And in fact, we like the functional level of strategy so much, I've seen in construction particularly, that we forget about the last piece, which was supporting the other two components. And if you are careful with functional level, you can align functional level strategies together. And if you can connect corporate strategy with a business strategy with a functional level strategy, that all three align particularly well all the way through, Now we are really becoming very, very nimble and understanding what we're doing, and all of the oars are rolling in one direction, and that makes a really cool time in companies. So I've seen it happen. I've also seen it happen where functional levels guide the ship this direction, and this strategy is going to take us over that direction in functional level, but the business level is going in that direction, and corporately we're kind of covering it all. But wow, there can be also some strategy conflicts that happen if you're not aligned in all three of these areas. So with that, I'm going to kind of walk through some of the questions to ask here on how you want to implement what does that mean? What does that mean? What are some of the questions that we need to ask in order to kind of figure out where we're going? So here's just a couple of ideas on where and how strategy may or may not be at, or where you think you may need to apply some strategy into these three separate areas. And the first one is is everyone focused on winning? Are you winning at the right places? Are you winning in the right spaces? Is everyone focused, or is the leadership team, and are we all focused on what we're really going after? So if you answer yes, we're really focused on one particular area, like, man, we really need to get into healthcare, and all the team knows that healthcare is coming in, and we're going to be doing something specific on that. Are we really focused on winning this job, or winning this area, or winning this specific client over, or whatever the strategy becomes? Are you focused on winning? That usually is a guide that says, man, we really probably want to sit down and talk about strategy for that. Are you fighting for clarity? So if you're all of a sudden confused about something or need clarity in something, you might want to again say, oh, what is my strategy for getting this clarity, right? And that's just another way a guide to think through. If you're looking for buy-in, do you have buy-in? Are we all headed in the right direction? Or are people questioning things? Are there areas out there that you're like, man, I'm not sure if I'm buying into exactly what we're doing here? Do you have buy-in? You may want to start looking at where the strategy is aligned. What am I trying to align with strategy? Where is it at? Is it corporate, business, or functional level? How's execution? Are you getting things done? Are you getting things executed? Are there areas where you're maybe a little slower than you are, maybe, or things take longer? And once again, maybe you need to look at some strategy. So all of these items, and competing priorities and enormous opportunities is a big one. So we have all these opportunities, but where are we really going to go? We can't chase everything. We can't do everything all at once. What are the opportunities that we can do? Again, and then last but not least, really think this critical time of transition, as I stated in our first hour, right now we are absolutely in a critical time of transition. And I really feel like, things are changing in the marketplace quickly. And so strategy around, long lead items, and how are we going to get our products we need, and how do we get the labor we need into the right spaces we have? How do we align jobs? What are we really looking at? Do we have good backlog? Do we have good buy-in? Do we have good clients? Where are we at with all of that? This critical time of transition, are we saying yes to too many things? Are we saying no? So how does that all happen right now in this critical time of transition is a really good reason why strategy needs to get in and be involved with understanding where you're at, and not just go for this kind of overarching, big strategic piece. So with that, this is a little guide here that I would suggest that you start looking at, or at least consider another step down the road of strategy. And so once again, there could be, in fact, we were just talking about, if we were on record, you maybe heard us visiting early before we started here, but we were talking about, where, what does it mean? Where are we going? What does it look like? What are our core issues? Where do we really want to go? And so if you simply sit down with a group, or yourself, or whoever this is, or your leadership team, and you look at all those questions up above I just talked about, and you say, all right, well, in this one particular area, whatever that may be, procurement, what's going right? What is right? And you take a few notes. This is what's happening right. We're doing this good. We're doing that good. We're doing this good. What is wrong? Ooh, we sometimes don't do this well. We don't do this well. What is confused? Not sure about this. We have a challenging, our CRM system is really confusing right now. We have a list in our client relationships management. We don't track jobs. It's very confusing how we track work. And then what is missing? And you may say, oh, geez, we don't really have anything that tracks, or we don't have anything that contains our clients specifically. And we aren't really involved in any outside groups, like, different industry groups. We're just missing that boat. We're not involved. We don't know what's happening in the marketplace. And so as you look at an item or an issue that you have, or maybe there's a conflict even that happens, that conflict can be generalized or put into these core issues, and you start getting your arms around, all right, now I think I know where we need to go with strategy. And so what this tool does, and what it can do is it will help you gain, the goal is always clarity. And so using tools like this, or using a quick tool in your group to say, where are we at, will accurately reflect and assist where you're currently at with strategy, and give you this perspective of this new potential of optimization. It's going to sit down, and there are people that, again, if you don't do this in-house, there are plenty of people out in the industry that can help you as a business to sit down and do this. And it doesn't take that long, but to gain this perspective and take this big items down into a smaller organization, and optimize what you're actually doing, so that you get a core issue and grow your strategy, and eventually evaluate and get strategic implementation dialed in. So you're not just going everywhere and getting out of alignment with those 3 general areas, right? We always want to align strategy through those areas, corporately, business, and down into functional areas. And so that's just an idea here about how to do this. And in order, the second, another idea here that we want to look at is this, that I wanted to share, was this idea about clarity. Another idea about clarity. And in this, there's a book that has been created, actually written by Lencioni Patrick here, called 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive. And in this book, if we're doing strategy to grow financially, grow our companies. So when you say, what does that mean to a company? Well, you say there are some key disciplines that came out of this review and all the book here that happened. And it's like, we need a strategy to build a cohesive leadership team. And then most importantly, and it's all about clarity, we need this to create clarity, to then over communicate clarity, and then reinforce clarity. And so as this is like happening, we want to continually create strategy around clarity and alignment of our teams. And so some questions to look at when you're looking at our organizations. Some clarity questions. And again, I'm just going to put these up because it's just easier for me to go through this. So, what are we looking at for clarity questions of strategy? How do you see if there's clarity? What are some ideas that you can use internally or externally, for that matter, in order to see about strategy, where your strategy is at, to assess to realize your strategy, grab a hold of it, and know where your strategy is? Some questions. Ask people, do they know why the organization exists? Like, hey, do we know what do you know? Like, what do you know about our organization? Do you know if you exist? Do we know what the fundamental values are? Do you have it somewhere that's up on walls, put around the office? Do we know what our fundamental values are? Is there clarity around that? Because if there is, it makes the rest of everything else go much smoother when you're talking to other clients, when you're out in the space that we're all in, when it comes to working with our owners, when we're working with other subcontractors. We know what our values are. We know what our lanes are, where we're at. What business are we in? What do we really do? What do we do well? What do we sometimes struggle at? What can we do if we're asked to do it? What do we don't do when we don't ask to do it? It's like, we do not do this work. Who are our competitors? Do we really know, and do we understand what the strategy is, to be out with our competitors and know where we're going to be in the right space against competitors or with competitors, or ignore and not do it because we know that that's not the space we want to be in. We want to ask what the strategy is and what are the major goals for just this year. So if we go back to the beginning, we say there's the corporate global strategy, but what are we really doing this year? Do we have one set standards for this year that we know what our goal is? We are going to absolutely do a project coordinator training this year. We're going to put it together and we're going to train project coordinators this year. We're going to do a field superintendent supervisory training course for our company this year. Everybody knows it. Everybody's rolling in the same direction. We create a strategy around that. Ask who's responsible for doing what at the executive level. So sometimes, I mean, in companies around it, and I've been working with too, it's like people don't know sometimes what do we really are doing, and that creates a lack of clarity. And so that lack of clarity can also make confusing and things aren't working. And all of a sudden we have this opposite feeling of strategy that moves in all these different directions. So So just some ideas and questions again to ask about clarity. And so I'm just going to put these up again, and my looks like the clickers here are a little bit off, but that doesn't matter. That's why I put them all at the same time. The benefits of providing clarity. So, all of these things. So again, strategy, clarity, all the way through the organization. It is an agreement on the fundamental concepts. If we can align and have strategy work through all of the fundamental concepts, we are going to create a sense of unity. When we create a sense of unity, employees at all levels understand what the organization is about. They also understand where the risks are. Because if we can understand what we're about, then we can oppositely say, when we are outside of those boundaries of what we're all about, we are now all of a sudden entering into the risk zone. And this is a little risky. And now all of a sudden I can have some awareness of risks, and then I can be trained. We're going to talk about this in the future. Once I understand where the risks are, I can now be trained when this risk is out there and it's a little bit outside of our comfort zone. Now I can be trained on how to tactically navigate around risk. I can take those risks and I can navigate around them because I know where I stand. I know where my center of gravity is, and I know where I'm at. And then the employees then will know how they contribute to the organization's success. They can have ideas. They can say, wow, I see this risk now. I understand where it is. This is a risk. Now I have my own ideas, and I can grab a hold of everybody's good ideas and move themselves around organizationally successes around some of those risks when I know where we are. And then when that happens, automatically employees and the people in the company, purpose and passion will automatically rise to the top. It puts me in the space. I know where I'm at. I have my direction of where I'm going. I know where the risk is. And now I can move myself into my management role or any role I'm in within the company. And I know where I'm at, and I know how to attack the risk. I also will know how to support someone else if they need help. And so purpose and passion can put us all in the spaces where we're best at our work, and strategy is the way to get there. And clarity will help us all align ourselves into that. And so with that, here are a couple of examples for each area. And so if I'm looking back to where we are going to go, I'm going to change up some of the words here. But here's a couple of business perspective strategies that are at these different areas, and a couple of examples that I'm talking about. Instead of talking generally, how about we just get a couple of really core, a couple of examples. And so enterprise strategy, right? And so this is corporate strategy. It's like, what are we doing? Visibility and vision, core details, and driving our team's technical knowledge. So our business model, right? What are we going to do? And you can establish an annual project coordinator boot camp. That's an example of something that you could use, or a project engineer or a project manager, insert superintendent, insert field engineer, insert whatever your own company's ideas are. What are we going to do when a new person in our company is here, and we're not just going to throw them to the wolves? We're going to put something together for a boot camp to put together how that's going to happen in our company. And that's a good company corporate strategy or enterprise strategy, right? And so now you get to the next space, which would be a documentation strategy. I'm talking business, right? You're saying, okay, here's what we're looking at to provide clarity on data and getting into a roadmap. And so now I'm taking this business, I'm saying, we're going to say my business model for our business is all contracts must be signed prior to any work on site. It's a good strategy. There's a lot of tactical things that have to happen in order to get all the contracts signed prior to going to work on site. But that strategy of, I'm going to make sure that all of my projects have contracts signed before any work is on site is a good strategy, and documentation to make sure that all the documentation is aligned prior to the start of work. And then there's process strategy, which says, I'm going to improve data. I'm going to take data and I'm going to put it into buckets, or I'm going to align my process and improve my process with data so that then my strategy can be identified, clearly communicated, and trained. And so I'm going to go back to my 3-win scenario here. But in order to maximize profit, our teams must win 3 times. We have to win procurement, we have to win in pre-con and turnover, and we have to win in operations. And if we win 3 times, my process of winning 3 times will create maximized profit for my business. And so each of these strategic ideas or examples of these different areas can be applied in these areas and provide clarity so that people know where they are, they know where their risks are, and they can align themselves into where what the business is all about and where to go with strategy and realize where strategy is. And so I think I'm probably, again, going through this relatively quickly, but hopefully it's making sense for all of you. Some takeaways. Strategy is important in today's world for guiding teams and great businesses to find, hire, and retain qualified people. We cannot do what we do without people. We can go procure all the material in the world, get it there on time. And if we don't have the right trained craftspeople and the right trained managers and the right trained people on our teams, there is zero chance of us being successful. So strategy is always about people, and people will make strategy either work, or people will either make strategy challenging, but clarity will give the key components to strategy to find, hire, and most importantly, retain qualified people. We must have strategy in today's space in order to do that. Key leadership must be involved. When you're looking at those first strategy ideas, where do we need it? Key leadership members, and at some companies that's different. It may include, all of obviously executive level and maybe even down into project manager levels. What is the leadership that you're going to have? But key leadership must be involved in order to set that clean clarity all the way from a corporate strategy through a business strategy and potentially into the lower level strategies. We must have everybody involved in order to do that, or we're going to run the risk of moving strategy all over the place and putting strategy in different places and activating strategies that may conflict with other strategies that are out there. So always be aware of that. Second of all, anytime you implement strategy, the goal is to provide clarity. Remember the 4 helpful lists, figure out where the clarity is, use those questions to look at clarity and understand that implementing a strategy, you're going for clarity. What are we going to do in order to guide us into this next space for clarity? And then when that happens, like I talked about, purpose and passion, once you get clarity of what you do, risks will start appearing, or at least that should be the goal, to see where the risks are at, know what the risks are. This is outside of our comfort zone. I'm in a risk space. Now I know how to navigate around them and talk about tactical ways to navigate around, predict a storm. And then purpose and passion will help me get myself through and around those areas with the clarity, because I know what I have to do and I know where I'm going. And last but not least, I like this graphic at the bottom. Without strategy in today's world, dangerous way. Dangerous. You have to have some kind of a strategy with strategy to get everybody. There's not enough time in the day to do it. All of us have lives that are wildly chaotic and sometimes, very, very challenging to get through. All of us do. That's just life. It's part of what we are and who we are. And so we have to keep ourselves straight with strategy, in and outside of business for that matter. What is it? Where are we going? Where are we headed? Get yourself in the right direction of strategy. And then, this roadway, as it comes through, you'll be able to see where the roads and the moves go. So if you don't have a strategy or clarity, get one. Start small. You do not have to take on all of the space all at once, but start small. Use some kind of this strategy to give yourself some clarity and move into, this strategy space. And then we'll talk about how to get tactical and more specific about training, and take these strategies and dissect them down into a meaningful tactical approach, simplified tactical approach, and then a simplified training approach, and how training alignment will work together. But the strategy piece and clarity is really important to talk through, because a bad strategy will make make it even more challenging with tactical, when you get tactical on things, because you'll just be spinning your wheels and it'll be impossible to train. And then training is hard. And then when training gets hard, training is not done. And so training becomes challenging if you don't have good strategy. And I've seen it time and time again. And we train, and then we train, and we just don't do it, and it doesn't happen. So with that, I don't know. Once again, I can't really see who's here. I'm going to escape out of this and go back to my my portal here, and look here and see. Looks like it's still Candy.
Yeah, I think that from what I'm finding out is that there may be other people seeing this, but they're seeing it from a different room. So they're watching, but we can't see them in chat.
Oh, okay.
We came through on the admin side to get into the session, but the attendee side took them back to I think part one. So they're as I understand it, they're still able to view it. They're just we just can't see them in chat.
Oh, okay. Well, then I hope that if there are any questions or different ideas that we want to formulate or add into what some of these ideas, if there are any, we can either ask them the next time or go back to things or look at what it is. But I mean, globally, strategy, to start a strategy or take where you're at with strategy and then align it. I just find it very important to really look at how you want to use it, leadership team wise, and then either internally or externally, however that looks, apply it to areas within your business that you need help with. And then you don't have to conquer the world with strategy, and nor should you try to. There's just not enough time in the day to do it. But strategy done right will help you with areas of conflict or things that you have that are out there that you can apply them specifically to a spot and then work together as a team in order to create clarity, and that will eventually knock down risk. And what you're going for is take risk out of what we do. When we take risk, then we can start about talking about training, and then all of a sudden everybody starts pulling in the right direction, and we have smiles on our faces as a company. So, I mean, I'm sorry I can't see anybody else that has questions, but hopefully those kind of simple concepts. Again, I'm not training book stuff here. I'm talking about how to apply it in space. So hopefully some of these ideas and things that people can use will be helpful for different people as they move forward in their journey.
Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. And so hopefully whoever's watching this can watch you in the next part and ask you any questions if they had any.
Okay, well, next time I'm going to use the graphic again. So if we're still out there, it's like we started with knowing where we're at with the life cycle.
Grant? Hello?
Is going to be, okay, now that I have all of that alignment, how do I put it together?
Okay, Grant, we had an audio issue. So you started with your first in your graphic and then it muted you. So if you could just tell us that one more time.
Okay, so the first was know where you are, looking at your life cycle, where are you at? Once you understand that, you can then look at strategy and say, okay, what strategy, where do I need to apply strategy? Is it corporate, is it business, or is it functional? How do I take that and align it? Because I can't do them all. If you can, you are probably, like, wow, that's a lot of work. you're gonna have a lot of work with strategy, and you're gonna maybe look at, so it's like, where do I need to apply it, or where's my conflict? Where do I need to apply strategy? Apply it. The next two are going to be about tactics. Okay, now that I know what my strategy is, how do I tactically go and take that strategy and apply it to make it meaningful? How do I make it meaningful? And then the last one is, once I have it meaningful, how do I then keep it simple and train it so that I can say my strategy actually gets down into the training space, and then consistency. And then how do I reapply and reapply? Remember that the book, it said, create clear, make a good leadership team, have a good leadership team, create clarity, re-communicate clarity, and then engage clarity. All of those things are what has to happen throughout these stages. We're going for clarity. So that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for all of your time and your information today.
Yep. Hope everybody has a good rest of the day. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Bye.